There's an Auburn wide receiver that could totally be flying under the radar.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up with the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend himself. Auburn basketball could be close to adding a big man in the portal. Things are settling down on the home front, but first things first, let's talk about Horatio Fields. He could be ready to pop. Darrell, you shared a list. It is list season. I believe it was 247. They put out the top transfer portal wide receivers. Of course, Eric Singleton led the way, but so much excitement about the tandem of Eric Singleton joining Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons' emergence to be a potentially elite SEC receiver. Horatio Fields is still there, hanging out. I think he was the 6th on that list, ranked transfer portal wide receiver in all of college football. And the fact that he is your arguably 3rd or 4th wide receiver, what a prime situation to be.
I know that we have discussed wide receivers in the wide receiver room a lot on these shows, and it's because of what I consider to be something that we're going to see that could be possibly historic. I'll go ahead and say it. So when you have, the Cam Coleman love and the Eric Singleton love, and wow, that I watched some video yesterday. Holy cow, of Singleton. I get all
quick.
That. Oh my goodness.
Quick.
I get all that. But what even matters as much to me is your depth. And when you start going down the list, and Hugh Freeze mentioned something a couple of months ago about how he's like, he came right out and said, we're lucky to get Horatio Fields. That's a coup for us. I want to put this in perspective for people so they understand why we're even bringing it up. You're talking about your potentially 4th wide receiver. And you and I did a little exercise about a month ago that was fun. And we said, where would Horatio Fields have been in the Auburn wide receiver pecking order 2 years ago? And we said 1 or 2, right? I mean, Jovich Johnson, I think, was the only. So I want to just say this. If you have
fair.
If you have any indication about how good this receiving room can be, Fields could be a number 2 on a lot of teams, not only across the country in the SEC, and he'll probably be your 4th wide receiver. Now, will they have packages to make sure he's on the field a lot with all 4 of them? I hope so. If you got a guy that's that talented, don't waste him. But I just think he's flying under the radar, and he is going to be a guy that people are going to be wow. Singleton's great. He deserves all the pub, but look at Fields and what he's doing. I think that's going to be one of the narratives by the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Recently, Hugh Freeze alluded to seeing more like 10 personnel, which means, 1 running back, no tight ends, meaning the other 4 guys are wide receivers. And just if you go 4 wide with your outside guys being Cam Coleman and Horatio Fields, and then you've got Malcolm Simmons and Eric Singleton in the slot, that's a lot. That's a lot to throw at a defense.
You just protect Jackson Arnold in that scenario, and he is going to have so many options. And if the one running back that's in the backfield can pick up the blitz or can also catch the ball coming out of the backfield, what a weapon. Or
do they run against the weak box because of what they have to do? I mean,
that'd be sweet.
Which is maybe the best case scenario.
Oh my gosh. I just thought about that. Yeah. I mean, he would go 15 yards before he got touched.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the polar opposite.
Right. And that's the beauty. Yeah. That's the beauty of this RPO stuff. And when you talk about players and specifically skill positions, it's tough because there's different ways to talk about like how good they are. Some of it's production and some of it's impact. And Horatio Fields, he had 463 yards at Wake Forest last year. And just like, if he could have that level of production here, and he is Auburn's 4th receiver, I mean, that'd be incredible. Just for the sake of comparison, if you took those 460 plus yards on last year's team, he would have been Auburn's 3rd receiver behind KLS's 981. Cam Coleman was 2 yards shy of 600. and then Malcolm had 450. So, I mean, when you just think about impact and you think about like what Malcolm Simmons did last year from a production standpoint, if you could tell me you get Horatio Fields to do from a production standpoint what Malcolm did last year, and then we assume Malcolm's taking a step forward, Cam Coleman's taking a step forward, and then Eric Singleton, I mean, he's getting crazy draft buzz already. Don't let this fly under the radar because Horatio Fields, I think, is worthy of this attention. And then, I mean, it does sound like it was a battle between him and Sam Turner and Perry Thompson. And it's fun to list all of these receivers, but I don't know. It's really tough to have an offense that involves more than 4 guys. That's just a tough thing to do. And so, like, how many relevant receivers are going to be there? That's what's going to make the fall so fun to see because it's going to be really, really competitive for targets.
Well, I think that segues nice into what I was going to say as far as the production of Horatio Fields may not be measured by quantity. Yes. When you start assessing yards, it may be quality of what he does when he touches the ball. Now, that's one aspect of it. But I do believe Auburn's passing yards could go up so significantly next year that he could still get his almost 500 yards with Simmons and Coleman and Singleton getting theirs too. You see what I'm saying? Now, you got to increase that almost 1,000 yards, but he could still get close to 500. But even if he doesn't, even if he gets around 380, 400 because of Coleman, Simmons, and Singleton being targeted so much, we'll measure his success and his productivity, I think, by at the end of the year by the quality. We're like, wow, every time that guy touched the ball, he did something. It mattered. It was a big play, or it was a touchdown, or it was a big first down. That's where I think his true value could show itself on this offense.
All right, let me ask you this.
Quality over quantity.
Let me ask you this, and we'll move on. I'm going to give you an over-under. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This season for Horatio Fields, over-under 31 catches, 372 yards. That's a 12-yard per catch average, 2 touchdowns. Do you think he does better or worse than that?
Better. And
that was Rivaldo Fairweather's stat line last year.
Yeah, he'll do better. And I'm not saying he may get to 500. He may get to 480 and 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. I just think the offense will have more yards in the air, thereby giving more opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell me that he gets to 400 and has like several touchdowns, yeah. And if he is truly the 4th receiver. Now, if he's your 2nd receiver somehow and the offense gets to that level, that's concerning. But I have a hard time seeing that happening. So, all in all, Rivaldo Fairweather sliding under the radar. And, a top 10 transfer wide receiver for a reason. No question about it. All right, things are settling down on the home front, but Darrell hasn't gotten a chance to talk about it. So we're diving in next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Darrell, I don't know if you've noticed this. I was looking at the FanDuel lines yesterday, and FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Prime time to jump in right now with the NBA postseason and MLB in full swing.
Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Auburn has been a 1.5-point favorite over Baylor. The line has moved. We got some movement. Have you seen this? It's 2.5 now.
I saw that. I was very encouraged by that. I think that's good. And I'd love to see the 7.5 go to 8 as far as wins, but I don't think that'll happen before the season starts.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell Dapprich over the weekend, Auburn's corner of the internet was set on fire with some of Hugh Freeze's comments saying, we've got to make a bowl game. I've gotten several people's thoughts on it on this show, but I haven't talked to you yet. So your overall thoughts on Hugh Freeze's comments and what was made of it.
A lot of these things that happen, typically I get accused of being over emotional, making a big deal out of stuff that's not a big deal. I'm going the polar opposite with this one. This is much ado about nothing. It didn't even appear on my radar. And here's why. Could he have done a better job of saying, we better at least make a bowl game? That's the bare minimum. But here at Auburn, we aspire higher? Yes. I think you need to read into more what he didn't say as opposed to what he did say. I think it was just a off the cuff, spur of the moment expression of, by God, we can't miss a bowl game this year. We got at least, but putting at least in front of it probably would have been more, beneficial. I believe in his mind. I believe if you gave him truth serum, Hugh Freeze would be disappointed if all Auburn did was become bowl eligible this next year. Book it. There's no way that he feels like, woo, like he did 2 years ago when that was the sense when we were in Vanderbilt, in Nashville, in that construction trailer, and Auburn became bowl eligible, and you could just see the relief because in his first year with that roster that he inherited, that was the standard. If you were to tell him, hey, Hugh, you're going to end up 7-5 and go to a bowl game, there's no way I would think that he would be content, happy, or satisfied with that. No, I'm not buying it. So he said what he said. He could have probably said it in a better way, but what he really means, and I think what he believes deep down in his soul, is that's the bare minimum. But even that might not be enough between you and I, Zach, to save his job. If Hugh Freeze goes 6-6 and loses a bowl game, I don't know how he could still be here next year with that roster. I just don't. And I've said that before. I've gone on the record. So I don't believe that he believes that. I think it was people made a big deal out of nothing. It wasn't anything to get that excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the him just like saying something that's totally untrue about the previous recruiting classes, the farther we get away from and the more conversations you have about it, that is the weirder thing, in my opinion.
About the top 25 not being in the top 25?
Yeah, 4 classes in a row not in the top 25, which is
not true.
Not
I mean, I thought Harsin had a class that was in the top 25. Did he not? 21 or something.
Yeah, I think we had 1 year not in the top 25.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's weird. That's a little strange.
Gus's classes were consistently in the top 20. So
yeah, the issue, and this is where maybe we're giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they have their own internal ranking system that's different than the others, possibly, but he normally cites the same stuff that we see whenever he's kind of touting his recruiting success. So I don't think that's it. But Kyle and I on the Barn Live show on Sunday, we were going back through previous, or maybe it was with Brad Law and Village Vice, whatever. There was another conversation. We were kind of going through them, and I mean, Auburn had a top 10 class, but there's no linemen in it, and so is that a top 10 class? But that's how we score it. We all agree that that's how we score it with whatever 247 Rivals, On3, and ESPN say. That's how we all score it. We all agree on that. Whether it's the perfect way to do it or not, that's how we all do it. So yeah, that to me is the more curious.
And the bigger picture of that is it's never a good look to make excuses and try to place blame on previous staffs. That's not what you do.
We're done.
If you're an alpha, you don't worry, you don't make excuses and say, oh, well, look what I inherited. People know it is. You don't have to say it. You don't even have to speak it. People know it, right? I mean, so don't state the obvious and look like you're making excuses and trying to blame everything on a previous staff. Everybody that follows Auburn football knows what he inherited. It's the, you don't have to state it. It's the unheard, it's the unspoken. Just move forward and worry about what you have and what you recruited. That's the only thing that bothers me. And other coaches do that too. Well, look what I had when we got it. Stop with that. That is weak. That's a weak mentality.
Is important, and it's accurate, but we're so close to where it doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't.
We're so close to that.
It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. Nope.
Yeah, I'm just ready for the potato famine to be ignored, and we're far enough away, almost, to where we can just act like it never happened. That'll be great.
Well, he'll be busy coaching Cal.
I don't know if I say Turner or did I say Sam Jackson last segment?
You said Turner. You said Turner.
I was correct on that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I accidentally say Sam Jackson? I don't know why that was in my head. So.
You said Turner.
Okay. All right. Real quick before we move to basketball, do you make anything of the line moving? According to our friends at FanDuel, like we said, it's now 2.5 instead of 1.5. I'm a little surprised it took this long for it to move, if I'm being 100% honest with you. And I think it's going to move more. I think it's going to close at Auburn 3.5.
I'm not surprised. And I think that the more national narrative that we've been discussing and covering here at nauseum the last 2 months about people buying into this team and ranking them higher than, and we were surprised, you start hearing some buzz. I think that's trickled down to the odds and people betting or whatever the
Sawyer Robertson's getting some love too, though, nationally, and like maybe that's why it hasn't. Like there is some love there, but I'm seeing way more Auburn stuff, and I don't know if that's just because like we're so in it, and so we see all of that stuff and get tagged and all that stuff.
That's why he's a really good player, and he's a concern because he can beat you with his arm. But that's why I'm the comfort level of our secondary helps me feel better about that. Like if Robertson puts it up 40 times and they feel like he has to do that to beat Auburn, I just got to think that with this secondary and maybe with this pass rush and Falk and some of these other guys and Crawford, that Auburn's going to get a couple of turnovers. And I think he's not going to be able to throw it 45, 50 times. If he has to do that to beat Auburn, I like our chances with the secondary making plays.
Yeah. And they feel good about their wide receivers. There's just no way their receivers, like as far as what our corners are having to cover every day in practice.
Exactly.
There's like, it's going to seem like a day off, I think.
That's
not to be too arrogant.
That's a very underrated point. And I remember Alabama's corners talking about that when they had to defend Smith and Riddle and all those guys. And
Waddle.
I said Riddle. Waddle.
You combined Ruggs and Waddle.
I sure did. Yeah. I'm not supposed to follow Alabama. Mechie, William. I mean, they had, but that four,
what a run for them.
That four that went, it's they talked about it and how it was absolutely a lot easier to cover when they were game day, right? So maybe Auburn gets
something I was told is that Jay Crawford and Cam Coleman's relationship, they respect each other so much that anytime one of them beats the other, they take a second after every rep and talk about why they did what they did to explain why they won the rep. And I just think that is exactly how we take that next step.
Yeah. And is Can Lee over there on Singleton? I mean, it's just amazing to think about that in practice. Cause to me, you may have a different take on this. The footage that I've seen from practice, and I've seen a lot of it, he's uncoverable. I haven't seen anybody really lock him down or shut him down. He gets separation.
The difference and once again, the Eric Singleton stuff, it looks so dynamic, and the way he's running those routes, and you compare some of the early training camp footage that we're seeing of like Travis Hunter come out, and it's like, I'd rather have Eric Singleton going into a break than Travis Hunter based on what I've seen in these videos that are coming out. The difference is it's like, oh, okay, nobody's gonna be able to guard him. Well, a lot of that stuff is breaking in, and there's gonna be linebackers and safeties there. And so it's not like true one-on-one, but the outbreaking stuff where there's not going to be other defenders is where I'm like, oh, all right, Jackson Arnold, spend all day, just put a trash can or a big bucket in the corner of the end zone and just practice that throw over and over and over again.
To that back shoulder, baby, because it's going to be there. Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of excitement there for sure. Auburn basketball, are they close to going international for the next big man? A lot of signs are saying yes. That's next right here on Locked On Auburn. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. I want to spend a few minutes talking about Tahad Pettiford at the end of this as well. But the assumption is Auburn's getting one more guy in the transfer portal. And there's a lot of signs pointing to, is it Filip Jovic? Is that how it's pronounced?
Jovich.
Jovich.
I went online because there is Jovic. There's a couple different ways to pronounce that Serbian last name, but it's Jovich.
Jovich, spelled Jovic. Filip Jovic. He's from Serbia, 6'9" or 206 centimeters, which is what his page says, which I think is awesome. But I mean, this guy seems like he checks a lot of the boxes as far as what we think that, there's a current hole in Auburn's roster. I know I've been more critical of Auburn's bigs than most places. This would make me feel a lot better.
Well, this is a guy that will be probably scouts say will be a one and done. He dominated G Leaguers.
Yep.
He averaged 12-4 last year, but against the G League, 16-7. A one and done guy that should be in the NBA next year. We've heard about him for to be perfectly honest, the last month. So people are probably thinking, what's taking so long? What's the deal? Well, here's what it is. FIBA, which is the Association for International Basketball, they have something now called a letter of clearance for players under a certain age to come over to America and play basketball, even college. They have this letter of clearance to go from professional club to professional club. They've extended it this year to make them have to. It's like a clearinghouse, okay? They have to fill out, to even go to college. So you have to dot a lot of I's, cross a lot of T's, make sure everything is in order. And I think Auburn's really, really close to having that done. If not for that, I think he would already be committed to Auburn.
I like that Auburn's doing this on the front end, Darrell, because not too long ago, Kentucky brought in a hot shot. It was like I think they called him Big Z. I don't remember what his actual name is, but a dynamic player, and they couldn't get him out. He was here. He was on campus, and he wasn't eligible. So I love that they're go ahead and getting this done. So all that's behind him once he hopefully signs and enrolls and all of that. I think I like this order of operations a lot more.
Wisconsin was very high on him, thought they had him until Auburn got in the game. It's really unique. Auburn typically doesn't get international players like that. Mamadou Ndiaye was one, but so this is a guy, in my opinion, and from reading scouts, NBA scouts, college, that would literally be a starter at the 4 position. He would start at the 4. You'd move Murphy from Mississippi State to the 5, and you'd bring the kid from Butler off the bench, which is exactly the scenario you want if you're Auburn. Then you still have the kid that Freeman, I believe his name is, that's really, really good. And
D2 guy.
Yeah. Hall. So this would really complete this team, but he's not a guy that I think Auburn's bringing in for depth. I think he's a guy that would come in and start because of his international experience.
Yeah, no, this is not a depth ad, I don't think.
No, he's a really good passer. He's a very good, very athletic, very good in the paint, kind of a high flyer guy. But he's physical and like I said, on the Serbian under 21 team. But to go 16-7 against G Leaguers is pretty impressive.
You take it. So we'll see. Filip Jovic. We'll keep you posted there. Tahad Pettiford, he dominated that first scrimmage. Since then, he wasn't as dynamic. The latest mock at the time of us recording from ESPN had him going to the Pistons in like the late 30s. And so that's a second round pick. Everything we're hearing is if he gets that solid first round grade, he'll go. And if that doesn't happen, he's likely to return to Auburn. It's this weird thing of like, we want Tahad to be so good and achieve his dreams, but we also are like, we want you to come back and achieve dreams at Auburn too. So it's this weird dynamic of like, yes, Tahad's killing it. Oh no, we may lose Tahad. I've never really felt anything like it.
Well, I think if you look at big picture for him, if he's somebody that's going to go in the mid 30s and he comes back next year and plays like he's capable of playing and gets into the top 15, then it absolutely pays off to do what he's doing. And I know that last week I felt a little bit less confident with that first scrimmage, and then we did the show and the next scrimmage happened that same day, and I went back to feeling how I did all along. I think when we record the show next week, for next week's show, the one that will drop on the 29th, on the 28th, we'll know. He has until the 28th to keep his name in, and I think we'll have a really good idea by obviously when we record the day before that he'll be coming back to Auburn. That's been my prediction all along. I don't think there's anything he can do from now until then to shoot into the top 25.
I expected the mock drafts to be more reactionary, and I'm glad that they haven't been.
Well, because he also had that second scrimmage where he didn't light it up.
Yeah.
Where he had 6 turnovers and he was 4 of 15 from shooting or whatever. So they kind of balanced each other. I feel like if he would have stacked scrimmages and got another 20 and 8 assists on that second scrimmage, they might have been reactionary.
So I'm glad that you said that date. I'm glad you said May 28th because I've been seeing June 15th. But I don't know why these dates are different. I just want to read this. The NBA's final deadline to withdraw from the draft and maintain NBA eligibility for future years is June 15th. This is different from the NCAA's deadline, which is May 28th, for college players wishing to retain their NCAA eligibility. So I don't understand why they wouldn't line those up, but whatever.
But the 28th is the date that
that's the one that we care about.
Yeah, we care about. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Here to serve.
What's a situation where the June 15th date would apply then?
Maybe international players. International players,
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
International players.
Got it. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with Tahad coming back to the Tigers. Darrell Dapprich, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
You can follow me on X, DAP6410, if you want to have a little fun. Wednesdays and Fridays with you. And now that I've got some of my busy things out of the way and activities, I'll be jumping back on the Barncast with you and Kyle on Sunday nights at 8.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.